revolution, y'all. Yeah, the revolution.
Live updates from the Justice 8. We're here, Victorville. We're in Department V5, not V4 as originally planned. So we're in front of Judge Wilkinson. He's a former civil attorney from a big law firm, so he's not a crim guy. I and Mr. Quintero filed written bail motions, which the judge has read, so that's a good sign because we wanted to make sure the judge wasn't basing his rulings on the bail and OR hearing that we're having solely on the oral argument. So we went in the back and we got a bunch of court dates. The judge was happy that we set a trial for April 8th. We have motions and a pre-trial for March 1st as 0 of 60. We have a readiness conference on April 3rd. So all of those hearings will be in Department V4 with Judge Harris. It's a call to the community to have people come out, the same love, support, and energy that we have today, which, by the way, I want to commend everybody for coming out. The community worked hard to put the word out, and the fact that you're here means that you're standing up for the Justice 8, so give yourself a high five, round of applause. Alex really appreciates that you're here. So the prosecutor, and this was part of my strategy, I wanted the prosecutor to go and get his argument done before lunch. I wanted the emotional impact of the prosecutor's argument to wane a little bit so the judge has a chance to go to lunch, you know, get in a good mood, and then come back, take a break, and then hear from the defendants. So we've worked it out amongst the defense lawyers, and I want to congratulate my co-counsel. I don't see any of them here, but Christian Contreras, Mauro Quintero, Damon Almari, and Saeed, I forget his first name. But anyways, the lawyers are really chipping in. We are a team, we're functioning, we're divvying up tasks. So you should know that the legal team, it's a dream team for the Justice 8, and I want the community to know that. So originally I was gonna go first and argue Alex's bail, but what we've decided to do is take people who are not charged as the ringleader. So let's go with people who are less involved. We're divvying up the facts because we're definitely challenging what the prosecutor has been saying, and I'll give you some big examples. If you remember, if you were here at the preliminary hearing, at first the detective said that my client said, if you don't apologize, I'm going to beat you every day. And then on cross-examination, I think it was my cross-examination, I really forget, but the detective admitted that it could have been, if you don't apologize, I will be here every day. So the fact that the prosecutor is telling the judge that is not based upon the actual evidence at preliminary hearing. So we have a lot of factual errors that we need to correct on behalf of our clients. So that's one example there. And then just to take you back to Judge Arredondo's ruling, if you remember on day 5 of the preliminary hearing, Judge Arredondo started out by saying something that sounded nice. She's a mom, she's concerned, she appreciates the activism, and she definitely does not support anybody marginalizing or victimizing people such as the street vendors. So that sounded good, and then everything went south after that. So we learned that about her. But if you remember, I think it was count 9 was charged as vandalism, and the prosecutor wanted to add a robbery by interlineation. And what that means is that they're just gonna orally amend the charges. And so if you remember at the preliminary hearing, the evidentiary basis of that robbery was John Doe 2 was seated in his car. The folks were around the car. So he's in his driver's seat facing the direction of the car. Behind him, and the significance of this was underplayed, why did John Doe 2 have a mace canister in the back seat of his car? And I don't think that point really hit Judge Arredondo, but he did. And so apparently some unknown person, it wasn't Alex, I'm speaking for Alex, it wasn't Alex, someone reached in, got the canister, sprayed a quote unknown liquid, and then put it back. So that's the robbery. So the judge wasn't having it, and she said, no, people, I'm not going to allow the amended robbery. So what happened this morning, we found out, is that the prosecutor alleged the robbery anyway. And so this is important because you're hearing the prosecutor's rendition of facts. It's kind of like a time warp back to before the preliminary hearing, and there were some significant pieces of evidence that came out during the preliminary hearing. One thing that I'm a little proud of is, so if you remember the preliminary hearing, now the DAs are saying, well, we showed the complete videos and they accuse us of editing videos to make it look palatable. And so what I'm trying to tell you with that, if you remember, that the prosecutor didn't show any videos for 2 days. So if you remember, they had Detective Travis Johnson, and then they had the IO in this case. They talked about the video. They said what they thought it said or showed, but they never showed the frickin' video. And so if you remember, the community gave me videos, many of which are on Alex's phone, but we don't have access to his phone because it's in police custody. So the community gave me the videos that were posted online that the cop, the investigating detective, said he spent 50 hours watching all these videos, and yet the prosecutor didn't want to show one video when they first started their case. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? The takeaway is being selective with the evidence. So when I started showing videos, I was able to show, and I said this in my closing argument, I'm gonna say it again, John Doe 1 is a liar. John Doe 1 is a liar. When he confronted the street vendor, Steven Rodriguez, who, by the way, he was 2 inches under the property. So like one of his poles barely impinged on the property over there at the market. And so this guy got in his face and he was aggro, right? And if you remember the video, he used the N-word on the vendor. Sure there is no video evidence that corroborates what John Doe 1 was saying, that Alex called him the N-word.
Thank you.
So I was able to destroy John Doe 1's credibility. When John Doe 1 claimed, and I'll use you, that the street vendor choked him out, and then he used his hands to push it up, and then that's when the phone fell. And you remember when I showed the actual video? The actual video did not show that. There was no point in time where you saw hands on John Doe 1's neck. I mentioned in my closing argument, what you did see is that a pumped up, angry John Doe 1, you can see his jugular vein pulsating as he's calling this guy. He says, "You a boy, you a boy." And he said something about my NGA, okay? So he's a liar. And there's a reason they didn't bring him to court during the preliminary hearing, because they know he's a liar.
100%.
And then I never saw anyone's hands going up. I never saw that on the video because it never happened. That's when you see the tussle. That's when you actually see John Doe 1 punching and swatting the street vendor to try to shut down the video because he knows he's out of line. And the reason I bring this up is that the prosecutor's rendition does not comport with the evidence that we elicited, that I elicited. And if you remember Judge Arredondo's ruling, She didn't talk about John Doe 1 because even she had doubts about his credibility. She talked about John Doe 2. She talked about John Doe 1 with the fight at the El Super, which Alex filmed. Alex filmed that and streamed that. And when John Doe 1 claimed that he was having epithets hurled at him, there's not one epithet that you can hear during that section of what happened. So what we have is mutual combat. We have a fist fight. The emotions are high, okay? There's absolutely no video evidence to corroborate John Doe 1's claim that there was a death threat. This magical Hispanic male, number 2, who allegedly has a gun, where's the video evidence of that? Where's the audio? Why didn't John Doe 1 call the cops right then and there? Because it never, ever happened. Why was John Doe 1 having his hand on his holster for his pepper spray device? Okay? So when Alex said, hey, you have one, we have one too. Okay? So that's the reality of the evidence here. Now, a lot of people in the community believe that this is a politicized prosecution because of Alex's confrontational activism.
100%.
And as I have said many times, controversial is not criminal.
Not criminal.
Controversial is not criminal.
That's right.
Controversial is not criminal.
That's right. That's right.
Now look, what we really have here are two fist fights, right? Because I'll admit, you can see it on the video. At one point, after John Doe 3 opens up that car door and hits that lady, and you guys saw it, the prosecutor and the cops are trying to minimize it, but you saw it.
She was
and
awesome.
You saw her recoil, and when he got out, he wasn't like, hey guys, can I make a donation? He was ready to throw down. And that's obvious when you watch the video and you're not brainwashed. So my point is, look, I'm gonna say it. There's video of my guy going like that.
Videos don't lie.
Okay guys, that's a fist fight.
Yes.
Right? That's a fist
combat.
fight. So we're not really here with all the death threats that the prosecutor's trying to say. We have two fist fights, and if you remember, so look guys, I wear the flag pin, and the reason I wear the flag pin is that I'm a proud American, and I don't want other people to try to say that they're the Americans. We're the Americans. We have our First Amendment right to speak out. So I wear the flag pin. But if you think about the history of political demonstrations in this country, they've gotten more contentious, they've gotten more violent. It's the MAGA people who bring the damn bear spray.
100%.
It's the MAGA people who have those metal flagpoles that they use at weapons.
100%.
It's the MAGA people who see a protest and try to drive their car and kill people.
That's right.
Okay? So what I'm saying is, good, bad, like it or love it, this is what's happening in our country today. And I bring it up because look, there's pepper spray as part of this, all right? That's part of the reality in 2024. But the way I see it, we have two fist fights, right? We got something with John Doe 3, we got something with John Doe 1. And as I said in my closing argument to the judge, these victims do not have clean hands.
No.
And that's an important part of what the real video evidence shows that the prosecutor is neglecting to tell the judge about. So let's talk about John Doe number 3. John Doe number 2. So John Doe number 2 is going to a police station that is closed to the public, right? There's a little phone in the yellow box.
It was Labor Day weekend.
If you remember that. It was Labor Day weekend, as my activista friend over here pointed out. And he's trying to file a report, but he ends up getting pissed off at the so-called protesters. And remember, I don't use the word protesters. protester is a word the government uses to marginalize people who are activists, who are out there in the street. So I use words like peaceful assembly, the activists, right? The demonstrators, let's go back to the language from the 60s, okay? So protests means that we don't like you and somehow you're out of line, to me. But this guy, John Doe number 2, he gets upset because he blames Alex and the folks for shutting down the police station. So what does he do in response? He takes a Gatorade bottle filled with urine with the cap off, and he throws it at the crowd. So if I did that while being in jail to a deputy, that's called gassing, and that is charged as an assault. Okay? So the cops are saying, well, it's an unknown liquid. We know what it is, but I did get the detective to admit that the crowd perceived the liquid as urine. And that's significant, okay? So if I throw urine at you guys, I'm pretty much gonna expect that you're gonna be upset, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you go to the biker bar and there's like 20 Harleys and they leave their gloves on there, and you take those gloves and you throw them on the ground. What's gonna happen, guys? Come on, use your brain. So everyone says that the crowd has a, quote, uncanny ability to locate people, to dox them, and to go to their homes and protest. And the DA actually said 100 people went to John Doe 2's house. So let me first say that that is an absolute lie. His own witnesses said it's probably 10 to 12 people that went to John Doe 2's house. This is on video, people, okay? They want to insinuate that, and then there's an article, I think it's SB Sentinel, so they call everybody the Enamorados. So they don't even, they're not going to say Victorville 8, Justice 8. They're calling everybody, you know, whatever, Los Enamorados. But let me go back to a significant point that the prosecutor just argued to the judge. And he said that they somehow found out where John Doe 2 lives, and this is why the group is dangerous. It turns out John Doe 2, homie, lives on the same street as the police department, like several blocks down. It wasn't that hard to see his car. Whatever his, quote, counter surveillance was, homie drove down the street. Come on, guys. That's a joke. All right. Now, when they got there, they were upset. Why were they upset? Because he threw urine at them. And he blamed them for something that they didn't do. They were peacefully assembling, and they wanted Wendy to get released from custody. They didn't break any laws. And, you know, nobody knows who committed any of these alleged vandalisms. That's why the DA dropped the vandalism. So there is no vandalism anymore, despite evidence that we heard about that. So let's talk about John Doe number 2. John Doe number 2 is in his car. There's a crowd. Okay, he feels intimidated. I get that. He says, what can I do not to get my ass beat? Okay. And someone, they said it was Alex, that may be up for debate, said, just apologize. If you don't apologize, I'm gonna be here every day. So John Doe 2 said, under the circumstances, I'm gonna get out of my car. He opened the car. You see this on video. I got the detective to say it was inches from where he was in his car when he kneeled down and he said he was sorry. As soon as that happened, what happened? Everybody left. Story over. That was what happened. This is not a kidnapping in the sense of what you watch on TV, okay? So, and remember what I told the judge. Alex and everyone else is charged with false imprisonment and kidnapping. So what's false imprisonment? False imprisonment means that you want to leave, but I'm not letting you leave, right? Kidnapping means I want to stay, but you're making me leave. So you can't have it both ways, and yet that's how they're charged. So the issue here is that we have in 1 hour our only opportunity left. Guys, this is the last bail review hearing in the case, unless after trial the judge will allow it. And often if someone's convicted, that's when judges say no bail pending sentencing, okay? So we've had no bail the whole time. Everyone's been in custody since December 14th. It's been over a month. In my practice, no bail is generally reserved for my alleged gang murderers who start out with $6 million bails. They have 1, 2 murders, and attempt murder. And then the family says, Rosenberg, please lower the bail. And I say, hey, listen, if I do this, I'm running the risk of getting a no bail. And then the judge says, okay, great, Rosenberg, thanks, no bail. So we don't have that. It's in my moving papers, my motion. We have no great bodily injury. We have no great bodily injury. John Doe number 1, I think he had, they like to say contusion. It's a scratch, people. It's a scratch on his shoulder from being on the ground. There's no broken bones. There's no blood. There's no stabbing. There's no discharge of a firearm. There's no shooting. Okay, so I have cases, and I practice all over Southern California. I have cases where people get shot, and I have cases where I get people 9 months in camp. Okay, so what I'm saying is that this case is overblown, and there's no reason to have no bail. So let's talk about public safety and threats and safety of the victim. So here's my argument. And if the prosecutors are watching the live stream, I'm giving you a heads up. It's in my motion that they read anyway. So the functional equivalent of sitting in jail with no bail is being on house arrest. So if Alex gets the ankle monitor and he cannot leave his home unless he's going to work, unless he's going to school, or unless he's taking the adult child, who, by the way, they're Wendy's child, the daughter, I think she's 24, she's blind, she's epileptic, she has seizures, and she cannot take care of herself. She goes to the doctor a lot. So if Alex cannot talk to the other co-defendants, stay away, except Wendy, because they need to co-parent. If he stays off social media, no more posting, okay? If he's not allowed to talk about the case, if he's on house arrest, that's the functional equivalent of being in jail, because as soon as he violates that, he knows he's going back in, and he knows it's going to be no bail. And I've said this before, and I think it's a little bit ironic. It's ironic because while Alex is in jail, he can call, where's James? Well, anyway, James, his cousin, the barber, he can call James and leave a message that can be posted. Okay? So right now, they're just making Alex and everyone else martyrs. So if they really want to silence the man, put him on house arrest and keep him off social media. So I find that incredibly ironic, the situation. They're just not thinking this through, in my opinion. So yes, I am going to vigorously advocate for the judge to put Alex on $80,000 cash bail. That's an amount that Alex can afford. And put him on house arrest with a lot of restrictions in order to protect safety to the public, safety to the victims, and ensure his appearance in court. Now, I want to tell you that some of the other lawyers don't have faith in this hearing, and they don't believe that the judge is actually going to change the rulings of at least 2 prior judges, and for Miss Lujan, she had Judge Arredondo make her ruling. But I'm an optimist, ladies and gentlemen, and I came here to get Alex out. So whatever they want to do, I'm making my argument. I added the 8th Amendment excessive bail to my motion. That means I have federalized my motion. That means if I need to get other judges to look at this, in theory, I can go to federal district court. So if we lose today, you know, as I like to say, estamos en la jugada, okay? Still in the game, people, okay? So if we lose today, we're gonna write a writ to the Court of Appeal and have them review this, and the Court of Appeal can say, you know what, Rosenberg, I agree with you. We're gonna actually make a bail ruling. More likely, the Court of Appeal can say, Rosenberg, you're right. This was unconstitutional and it didn't follow In re Humphrey. We're gonna remand it back to the court for proceedings consistent with our ruling, okay? And if we lose, we're just gonna keep going here, all right? Now, I wanna say the reason that we're keeping the trial on a shorter leash is that if you notice during the preliminary hearing, how many people went to the preliminary hearing? Okay, I was hoping to see more hands because you'd understand what I'm referring to. But for those of you who went, if you didn't go, maybe my summary will give you an idea of the evidence and what was happening, okay? But if they don't get out, then we can still litigate the issue of bail. The reason we're on a short leash for the trial is, if you remember at the preliminary hearing, the detectives kept saying, well, we're still analyzing, we're still investigating, we're still extracting the phones, we're still possibly looking for 11 other people. That was a rumor that was leaked. The detective clearly said that they're still watching video. They may try to add other people to this case. So we're not going to give them 2 years to drum up a whole bunch of new defendants and come up with new charges and case build. So that's why we're putting it on a short leash, okay? So in the past, I have said publicly, you know, when you represent Alex, you know, there's a lot of pressure. And what I mean is that Alex is a folk hero, okay? Alex can mobilize hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands, and if things go the wrong way, don't be surprised if the community gets larger. That's right. Because of what they're doing. And so when you represent Alex, you have to be the team captain, okay? That's part of it. So I have tried my best to fill that role, to take a leadership role on the case with the lawyers, and we're starting to see some benefits. The lawyers were all working together. Okay, guys, so if anybody has a couple quick questions, I'm going to open it up. But me and Checkpoint, we're going to go to our little war room that we have out here, and we're going to posse up and talk strategy. So if anyone has a question,
I got a
let
question.
me know. Yes, this gentleman right here.
In the event that they continue to hold them unconstitutionally without bail, do you have a ballpark figure on how soon you can get it into the appellate court and argue bail there?
So it's not that we're arguing bail, it's that we're challenging through what we call a writ of mandate, and we're basically asking other judges to look at what these judges did, and we have to do that within 10 days of the hearing. So basically, Rosenberg, I'm not going to have fun this weekend. If that answers your question.
Yeah, 10 days.
I think it was Christian Contreras at the first press conference who said Victorville 8. And so I was like, okay, the Victorville 8, you know, that sounds like the weatherman from the 60s and 70s, right? And then it became the Justice 8. And when I first heard that, it took me a little minute and I go, yeah, I got it. Now I understand why it's the Justice 8. So thanks for being here. But remember, for every person who's here, right here today, there's probably 1,000, there's probably 10,000, there could even be 100,000.
So we're on lunch right now. We'll be back in about 1 hour inside the courtroom, and we gotta pray and hope that that they can get bail. That's what we have to do. I'll keep you all posted. I'm gonna share this video and free the Justice 8. Peace.
Alex is doing good. He does have some health issues that we talked about, but he's able to post, and I think that's good. If we get him out, here's what I told Alex, and this is not really attorney-client privilege, but what I said is, look, bro, if you get on house arrest, you're gonna write your book. You're gonna write your memoir, okay? So there's always something that Alex can do to raise the awareness, organize the community, protect the street vendors. Thank you very much. Should I hold that up too? So you can send him a letter while he's in custody. And if you haven't done that, please do, okay? Send him a few hopeful words. Let him know that you have his back. He told me he's starting to get some letters. And here's what I want to see, okay? I want the sheriffs in San Bernardino to be so sick of Alex getting letters that they say, oh my God, bro, you got 45 more today. So let that be a community call to action. Let's start writing those letters. And I also have said, I'm taking character letters. I have a bunch. I've used some for bail. So for today, it's too late for the bail hearing, but I'm still taking letters. Community call to action. I'm looking for more video, okay? There was a community member that sent me a video, and this was from John Doe 1. And so we had video of John Doe 1. So from your point of view, his car's facing that way. And we saw the thing, if you remember at the preliminary hearing, we see Alex is up in the right-hand corner, and the car speeds, and you see, if you see what I see is that the car seems like it hits Alex, he recoils, and then Alex said, Rosenberg, that's when he pepper sprayed me. And so I didn't have video that showed that. Then a community member like you sent me a video, and I said, hey, don't I already have this? And she said, no, Rosenberg, it's from a different vantage point. And I played that video, and in that video, you can see the windows down. John Doe 1 takes his pepper canister, and you see him raise up his arm, and it's an orange thing, and he aims it out the window, and you can see Alex. So I need your help to defend Alex, so get me the video. And one more important point, the prosecutor keeps saying that we're editing video. So the more unedited video that I have, the better Alex's trial will be. So I know there's an activist chat with like 29 people. Sometimes they talk to me. And again, my role here is not as the community organizer. I'm the lawyer. I'm trying to give updates so that community knows what's happening. But it's gonna be up to y'all to figure out what the response is. Rosenberg says, keep it peaceful. block the street, get a permit, let's have a teach-in, let's have a demonstration, like the people in the 60s did when they shut down a war.
Don't cry. Let's do it.
All right, guys, I'm out.
Yeah!
Here's Damon. So basically, Damon made the argument, and I'll let him tell you what he did, because he kind of blew up the whole proceeding, the whole hearing with his argument. And oh wait, hold on. This is the guy that the ladies call Rico Suave.
Yeah, that's the U.S. Constitution right there that Mr. Checkpoint has. And I want to thank Mr. Checkpoint actually, because I've been watching his Instagram reels and what have you, and I got some of my argument from his Instagram, because he posted that the same day that these prosecutors asked the judge to issue a no bail order for these folks, they gave a child molester, whom I named in court, $500,000 bail amount. So the question becomes, and I'm expecting the prosecutor to answer at the next hearing, because I left it at that, and I'm glad I was the last person to talk, because I wanted to leave him with the question, and let's see if he answers the question. Let's see, you're all going to be here on the next court date. Let's see if he answers the question, let's see if he ignores it, and let's see what he has to say. How do you justify giving a child molester money bail, but these folks, even assuming that everything they're charged with is true, let's assume it's all true. Let's assume that they did assaults, let's assume that they falsely imprisoned, let's assume that they were part of some conspiracy, let's assume that was the case. Why do they get no bail? Why do they get no bail? Does that mean that they are concerned more about what these folks do than what the child molester does?
Right, yep.
Does that mean that they're in the DA's crosshairs, in their radar, as opposed to the child molester? Let's see if they have the courage to answer that question at the next hearing. Let's listen closely and see what the prosecutor has to say in relation to that question, if he even bothers to answer it.
Are you
Let's
going to
see.
reiterate?
I'll make a point of it if he doesn't have to answer the question, but you know what? Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. I don't know how you answer that question with a straight face. How do you answer that question? The fact of the matter is,
going to.
we'll see. We'll see. But the point is this. The point is this, that we still have some rights in this country under the United States Constitution, for example, right? There are the Bill of Rights. You have the right to bail under the 8th Amendment.
Right.
But for some reason or another, these folks don't get that right. That right has been violated, and I said that in court. And the folks who drafted that Constitution were young people themselves, like me, like all of you, in their 30s. And nowadays they say, well, you're young, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you're young, you need more life experience. The fact of the matter is, those individuals were young men. Unfortunately, there were no women involved. There should have been. Nonetheless, they were young people, and they were, in fact, thinking about the cause of independence, of liberty, of freedom. Right? From what? From England, from the King of England. So they drafted those stipulations into the very document that is the basis for this whole thing. This wouldn't exist were it not for that document. This whole building wouldn't be in place if it weren't for that document. And yet, slowly, as time goes by, those rights being eroded quietly, and this is just an example of that. Quietly, all these rights that we once had are getting brushed under the rug. The right to bail, the right to remain silent, the right to a fair trial, the right to due process, the right against unreasonable search and seizure. And that takes me back to the point that I made the last time I gave a little spiel in relation to this. Why are the police injecting themselves into our talks? Don't we have a right? Don't we have a right under the 4th Amendment against unreasonable search and seizure? Don't we have a right to free speech under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution? Don't we have a right of association?
Yes, we do.
Don't we have a right to be able to publish our thoughts in the press?
Yes, we do.
Why are the police hawking over us? Why are they in court staring at us and mocking us? Why? Don't let them intimidate you. Don't let them intimidate you. And maybe there are some here right now And if they're here, listen, we're not intimidated.
That's right.
We're not intimidated.
That's right.
We're not intimidated. We're not intimidated. You talk about human rights violations in China and Russia? Fine. But what about the human rights violation that's occurring right here in Victorville? What about that? They talk about the fact that the Chinese government incarcerates people and throws them behind bars and throws away the keys, doesn't give them bail, doesn't presume innocence. They talk about that about the Chinese and Russian government, right? They talk about Vladimir Putin's dictatorship, right? And yes, that is a dictatorship. Yes, there are dictatorships out there. But practice what you preach. Practice what you preach. Don't go around acting as if you are the moral arbiter when right here in your own backyard there's a human rights violation occurring before us.
That's right.
That's more than a constitutional violation. It's a human rights issue.
Big time.
It's a human rights issue. Because these are folks who are aimed toward the betterment of the most vulnerable in our society. The undocumented. Those who don't speak English, who aren't familiar with our customs and our laws and their rights.
16-year-old little girls that get body slammed.
Exactly, 16-year-old girls who get body slammed by full-grown men.
Correct. Mayors in Fontana.
And then they come here puffing their chests, acting as if they own the place. They don't own this place. You know who owns this place?
We do.
The people do. The people. That's in the Declaration of Independence.
This is our house.
That Thomas Jefferson himself wrote. For the people, by the people, of the people. So don't let them intimidate you, because at the end of the day, this is for the people, by the people, of the people. And if they don't like it, then they can go to Russia and they can go to China.
This is why we always
Kill the police.
subscribe to Mr. Checkpoint on YouTube and send your cop videos to MrCheckpoint.com/submit.